being told you're not able to play sports.
And it's really frustrating. I don't get to be a part of it.
Rules forcing student athletes excelling in the classroom off the field.
My dad had gotten a call from our athletic director saying that I was ineligible to play.
Officials with state associations are even weighing in.
We don't come to work with the idea we're going to get somebody today. That's not what we do. We want them to play.
The state normally divided west and east each year by the NCHSAA, but now players on both sides are coming together for one fight, kicking the courses, the fight for eligibility.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Ken Watlington.
And I'm Courtney Courtright. We first learned about this issue from an Onslow County soccer player who was told she would not be able to play her senior year because she didn't have enough credits.
Her issue was she was taking advanced placement courses, and it turns out she isn't alone.
Yeah, 9 on your side's Claire Curry is joining us now with a deeper look into this story. So Claire, this is just a wild turn of events for not one, but two student athletes in our area.
Yeah, it is really crazy that not only one student, but two were affected in the same county, all playing the same sport.
And Claire, you first learned about this story from a Facebook post from their parents, but what are these two student athletes saying?
Yeah, after they were finding out that they were unable to play their senior season, they were really devastated.
To me, soccer is just, I get to play with my best friends, and it's really frustrating. I don't get to be a part of it.
It does me no good to put down anybody who made a mistake in this process, but I would just like to make it so it doesn't happen again.
The North Carolina High School Athletics Association requires students to pass a minimum load of classes in order to participate in sports the following semester. Caitlin, an above-average student at Richlands High School, was recommended by the school to take advanced placement courses, but those credits don't count.
With AP classes running a full year instead of a semester, those credits are not awarded to the end of the year, and because of that, the state was saying that she was ineligible to play.
And Madison, an above-average student at Southwest Onslow High School, was recommended by the school to take classes through the community college. Those two do not count.
One of the classes she was taking that was recommended by her guidance counselor was not considered a high school credit, which reduced her course load to 2 courses, making her ineligible.
Onslow County Schools filed appeals to the NCHSAA on the behalf of each of the two student athletes.
Unfortunately, when it went to the state level for sports, it was denied. We did push it to the State Board of Ed. Unfortunately, that was denied as well.
The school system says this has not been the first time a student athlete has faced this situation. So lawmakers are now stepping in to help.
The rule was written in 1987. I don't even think they had AP courses at that time, and that rule hadn't changed since then.
Eligibility, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's been over 10 years before we've really looked at it again. So it's a good time for us to modernize it.
Now for Caitlin and Madison, they hope the rule is changed for the sake of others.
And that's the whole point as us as student athletes is school comes first and athletics second, and to punish someone for going above and beyond in their classes and what they choose shouldn't be happening.
How about this? It's really hard to believe that young athletes are being affected by the rules and their eligibility like this.
Yeah, Claire, it really is. Their eligibility messed up by doing what they thought was the right thing to do. Claire, thank you. Let's take a look now, a deeper look at this rule.
The rule impacting these students is laid out in the Scholastics Requirements section of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association's handbook. It is important to note the State Board of Education is the one that creates these rules. The NCHSAA just enforces them. The rule states a student must pass a minimum load of work in the prior semester to be eligible to play sports during the current semester. Now, those requirements are different from school to school.
In traditional school schedules, students must pass 5 courses. If the school is on a block schedule, students must pass 3 courses. And in an AB block schedule, they must pass 6. This means if your school is on a block schedule and you only pass 2 courses, you are not eligible to play sports the following semester. Still ahead here on Kicking the Courses, we talked to the NCHSAA directly about this fight for eligibility.
We want them to play because we believe in education-based athletics and the core values that we are trying to teach through them.
But before we hear what they have to say, this story exploded across our state after first airing right here on WNCT. We will take a look at the reactions this story is getting.
Kicking the courses, the fight for eligibility.
Welcome back. After first airing the stories about our 2 soccer players in Onslow County, this story blew up in a big way.
Thousands commenting on social media, starting conversations online, and I'm sure even at the dinner tables too.
And Courtney, you've kept watch on these posts the past few weeks and you found some really interesting ones.
Yeah, Ken, they really are interesting. Let's actually take a look at these comments. Once the story made its way across the state, some of those comments grabbed our attentions, like the ones about this rule impacting you, your child, or someone you know. One of these posts reading, "Same thing happened to a player at my kid's school this spring. College commit, not eligible for exact same reason." Another post says, "I was made the captain one day and the next day I was told I couldn't play. It was a sad time." These comments keep rolling and rolling in, and we even got the chance to talk to one of the people behind these comments.
It was just hard because senior year is a big deal for a lot of players, a lot of student athletes, and then to finally be ready, about to have your first game, and then to get that call, it's just it was really tough.
Grades are good. Never been in any kind of trouble in school. AB honor roll. Just a good kid. And the one thing that they're passionate about, you're just going to take it away from them.
And you were even reacting when it didn't even impact you. Some saying it was absolutely ridiculous, others calling it insanity, and some are even calling out our state leaders. One of you saying the NCHSAA needs to change the rules. Another writing, the message from the state is that the student athletes should avoid AP classes, or at least avoid taking multiple AP classes. So sad. And those comments are just a few of the thousands we have gone through since this story aired.
And even more people are commenting. When we come back on Kicking the Courses, we talk to the NCHSAA Commissioner, Q Tucker. The sit-down interview you do not want to miss. Next.
Kicking the courses, the fight for eligibility.
We continue diving deeper now into this fight for eligibility by talking directly to the leaders.
That's right. While the School Board of Education creates the rules for student athletes and their eligibility, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association enforces them.
We reached out to the Board of Education. They did not want to do a sit-down interview, but I did get a chance to take the trip to Chapel Hill to speak to NCHSAA Commissioner Q Tucker. So obviously we're talking about the eligibility issues that have come about with at least a few of the players in our area in Onslow County. Thankfully they're now able to play, but it's kind of a strange situation because you guys, student athlete, the student comes first. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure these young people are doing what they need to do in school before they go play sports.
Correct.
Here's a situation where we have some individuals who are seemingly going above and beyond in their schoolwork, and somehow in the process things got off kilter a little bit. When did you first become aware of these types of situations?
Well, we've known about situations where students weren't taking what we call the minimum load. We deal with those every year. So when this particular situation came up, it wasn't an abnormal or out of the ordinary situation because we have students who for years. So we've always talked about that, and like I said, when it arose in Onslow County, it really wasn't strange. It wasn't out of the ordinary because we've had those in the past.
How many other situations are there like that this spring across the state?
Well, we had several situations that had come to us in the form of hardships. I don't know what the exact number is, but once the state, that independent appeals board, changed its ruling, then we went back and pulled any hardship requests we had that were like those in Onslow County. We revisited those, and if those students had taken less than a minimum load and passed all of those courses, then we rendered them eligible immediately. So we recognized that we had some situations where students perhaps had applied for hardship but didn't appeal it. But we wanted to be fair because of that reversal of that ruling by the independent panel, independent appeals board. So then we went back and looked, and then we reached out. It probably was about 4 or 5 students we then deemed eligible based on that ruling.
You've got obviously the NCHSAA, you've got the State Board of Education, you've got this independent appeals committee, all working together to make sure student athletes are eligible and can play the sports. How difficult is that, those 3 entities working together to try to make this happen sometimes?
Well, it has never been difficult, even though there are those who think that it is difficult for the NCHSAA and the State Board of Education to work cooperatively together. We have done that for a long, long time.
So the State Board of Education, you're here to enforce the policies they put in place.
Absolutely, especially as it relates to the scholastic, our eligibility rules. How do you play athletics? Not the game rules, those kinds of things, but we have always said, what are the academic requirements that the State Board of Education then wants us to regulate? And we've always done that. We don't operate outside of that.
And the importance of these rules is to make sure that people, young people aren't just showing up playing sports, all the schoolwork doesn't matter.
That's correct. And we also, the importance of rules and regulations is that the schools that are at the coast and the schools that are at the far west mountains are all playing by the same set of rules, and that there is this group of people who come to work every day to try to make sure that they're all, following those rules and regulations.
For you, as far as the eligibility situation that's happened, at least with our 2 student athletes in Onslow County, if you had a magic wand and you could make a change and you could just make this process maybe a little simpler for some of those students who really are trying as hard as they can to do as much as far as their academic career goes, what would you do?
Well, first of all, I really would take a look at trying to say either students need to pass a percentage of the courses they're taking, or perhaps we tie it directly to the credits that the state of North Carolina says that a senior must have in order to graduate from high school. I would look to do something along those lines. But I want to make it abundantly clear. This has nothing to do with the fact that students take AP courses or are in the IB program. I've seen a lot said that, well, these students were taking AP classes. That's not it. We don't get into what courses they're taking. We don't even look at the number of credits. Right now, if you ask me how many credits does a senior need to graduate, I can't tell you because I don't pay attention to that. But what is important is that the courses they're taking, that for us, it has meant they satisfy that minimum load. We look at things like, well, the course doesn't give a culminating grade until May or the end of the year. That's fine. That isn't held against a student. If a student is in a year-long course and we're looking to see, has that student passed the minimum load and the year-long course is factored in, what we say to ADs and principals, if you were giving a culminating grade in January or at the end of the semester, would that student pass? If the answer is yes, it counts towards the minimum load. So I want to be sure, because there's just been a lot of misinformation out there that suggested that, well, these students were taking AP courses or they were taking year-long courses when you don't even look at the grade until that time. That's not how this worked.
Tucker is also giving student athletes some advice on how to avoid this issue in the future. She says to look at the requirements and take the courses that prepare you to graduate. To see an extended version of my interview with Commissioner Tucker, just head over to WNCT.com.
There are 2 more groups we're getting in touch with: the State Board of Education, who creates these rules, and the Interscholastic Athletics Independent Appeals Board, who deals with student athlete appeals.
After reaching out for a sit-down interview with them, they did not want to participate, but they did send over some statements.
Aaron Jenkins is joining us now with a look at those statements. So Aaron, what are these groups telling us?
Okay, Courtney, they actually do have a lot to say. We'll start with the Appeals Board. This board is a group of retired educators appointed by the State Board of Education. They hear appeals of decisions made by the NCHSAA. In their statement to us, they say in part, quote, "This academic eligibility requirement has been part of the Board of Education's formal rules since 1986. and is clearly stated in the current eligibility rule. Now, they do go on to say they are recommending the Board of Education and the NCHSAA review the eligibility rules and consider changes to clarify them. Now, as for the state board, we reached out to see how they decided on rules and what the rulemaking process looks like. In their statement, they say in part, quote, "The process for rulemaking can be very lengthy and can take up to a year for a final change of a permanent rule to take place," end quote. Now, that process includes drafts to be widely published, a period for public comment, and then the board's Rules Review Commission negotiates the wording of that rule. When it comes to the modification of the rule and why it hasn't been done yet, the board says they will not speak to why the prior administration didn't do this. So now that we've heard from all the parties involved with these rules, we finally have a few answers.
Answers many people dealing with this issue probably wanted. Aaron, thank you.
Now that we've heard from the officials, let's get back to our two athletes from Onslow County. Still to come, we wrap up their story with some great news. We'll be right back.
Before we leave you tonight, we wanted to check back in on those two student athletes from Onslow County.
Claire, after we first aired their story, lawmakers getting involved and a big reaction from all across the state. You have a good news update for us tonight.
Yeah, Courtney, Ken, both Caitlin and Madison are now finishing up their senior seasons on the field.
My mom comes up and she's like, "Oh, you can play," and I'm like, "Okay, when?" Like, I wasn't expecting like immediately. I was nearly in tears because I was so excited.
The appeals panel and the NCHSAA both reversing their decisions and allowing both Caitlin and Madison to finish out their season with their teams.
Everybody was so supportive and so excited. It was like we never skipped a beat, and I'm just so thankful for all the help in the community, and it means the world to me.
But now these two are back on the field. The push continues in Raleigh for a change to the rule.
We're going to give them time to be able to do that, and then we'll sort of look at it and make sure that it meets what we think is correct. I'm perfectly prepared to do that through legislation.
And the student athletes are also pushing for change too.
I really still want to push for this, that it gets through, to change the rules. I hope it doesn't happen again and they just don't forget about it and push under the rug.
And it's great that Caitlin and Madison are now playing, but there is still a huge fight to at least make some changes to this rule.
We want to thank Claire and Aaron for all of your work, for digging deeper into this story for us. And we want to, of course, thank you at home for watching.
We hope you've enjoyed this special Kicking the Courses, the fight for eligibility. To learn more about this story, just head over to WNCT.com.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.